Spoilers warning for mistborn errors 1 and 2 and other related mistborn content. Mistborn was my gateway book into Brandon Sanderson's vast and ever-expanding cosmere. Back in school like half a decade ago now, I went in blind into the first book of the series after being recommended it by a friend, and I came out the other side after so many books later absolutely obsessed with the entire cosmere and especially how it handled magic systems. The beauty, in my opinion, of all the cosmere hard magic systems is that they're very structured and defined, and I like it when things are structured and defined. Like, take a look at this beautiful table of allomancy. It's so organized, and there's patterns and stuff to it as well. I'll bring this picture up again and again throughout the video, and hopefully you'll be able to see how neat it all is. So in this video, I want to give a brief intro into allomancy, which is one of the 3 manifestations of investiture on scadrial, which they call the metallic arts. The metallic arts consist of allomancy, feruchemy, and hemalurgy, and I gotta say those are really cool names to call your magic systems. All 3 of them are based around different ways that your body can interact with metals, with allomancy being the most widely used of the 3, at least in Era 1 of Mistborn. Era 2 gets a bit complicated. Anyways, the way allomancy works specifically is that allomancers, or those who are able to use allomancy, swallow bits of metal which they then quote-unquote burn to activate the magical power associated with that specific metal. When the metal is burned, it just kind of vanishes from their stomach, sort of like an E = mc squared type of deal where matter is exchanged into energy, in this case investiture or magic. There are 2 kinds of allomancers. Those who are only able to burn a single allomantic metal are known as mistlings, and those who are able to burn all allomantic metals are known as mistborns. It's one of the other known-betweens. Mistlings are also given specific names depending on which metal they are able to burn. And speaking of metals, there are a total of 16 basic allomantic metals, divided into 4 groups of 4 based on their areas of influence: physical, mental, temporal, and enhancement. The metals come in pairs, one being the periodic elemental metal and the other being the alloy of that metal. The pairs have complementary powers, with the elemental metal having the pulling ability and the alloy having the pushing ability. Each group of 4 consists of 1 pair of external metals with powers that influence things outside the allomancer's body, and 1 pair of internal metals with powers that influence the allomancers themselves. Okay, enough of that. Now let's start going through each of the 16 allomantic metals, starting with the internal physical metals, tin and its alloy pewter. A tin misting is known as a tin eye, and a pewter misting is known as a pewter arm or thug. Burning tin increases the sensitivity and capacity of the allomancer's 5 senses: sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing, and all 5 senses are increased at the same time. Burning pewter increases the allomancer's physical strength, speed, and durability, and enhances the body's ability to heal. Tin and pewter are probably the simplest powers of them all, so it's only gonna get more complicated for now, and hopefully I make enough sense. Next, we've got the external physical metals, iron and its alloy steel. An iron misting is known as a lurcher, and a steel misting is known as a coin shot. Burning iron allows the allomancer to pull on nearby sources of metal directly towards the allomancer's center of gravity. Burning steel allows the allomancer to push on nearby sources of metal directly away from the allomancer's center of gravity. The physics of iron pulling and steel pushing are based on the difference between the relative weight of the allomancer versus the weight of the thing being pulled or pushed. For example, pushing a small coin would shoot it out like a projectile, but pushing on a well-anchored steel beam would knock the allomancer backwards, and the reverse is true for pulling. When the allomancer is actively burning iron or steel, they also see blue lines connecting their center of gravity to pieces of metal around them, kind of like a laser targeting system. Next, the internal mental metals, copper and its alloy bronze. A copper misting is known as a copper cloud or smoker, and a bronze misting is known as a seeker. Burning copper creates an invisible cloud around the allomancer, which hides all within it from those who are burning bronze. Burning bronze allows the allomancer to hear pulses given off by other allomancers who are burning metals around them. Different metals produce different pulses. Copper and bronze allomancers play this sort of cat and mouse game. A significantly powerful seeker is able to pierce through copper clouds and sense their allomantic pulses. Next, the external mental metals, zinc and its alloy brass. A zinc misting is known as a rider, and a brass misting is known as a soother. Burning zinc allows the allomancer to riot or inflame the emotions of those near them, and this can be directed at a single individual or directed in a general area. Burning brass allows the allomancer to soothe or dampen the emotions of those near them, and this can be directed at a single individual or in a general area as well. Zinc and brass can be used interchangeably to achieve a similar effect using two different methods. For example, riding a specific emotion, say fear, can also be done by doing the reverse, which is soothing every other emotion except for fear, so that it is now the dominant emotion. Next, the internal temporal metals gold and its alloy electrum. A gold misting is known as an augur, and an electrum misting is known as an oracle. Burning gold allows the allomancer to see a vision of possible other lives they could have led and different paths they could have taken. Burning electrum allows the allomancer to see a vision of possible paths they could take in the future, usually limited to a few seconds. Gold and electrum are probably the strangest out of the 16 metals. They're not really that useful on their own and might even cause some psychological stress to the allomancer. Imagine seeing who you could have been and that version of you is better. You know, grass is always greener on the other side. Electrum can be useful, but that's probably for another video, wink wink. Next, the external temporal metals cadmium and its alloy bendalloy. A cadmium misting is known as a pulsar, and a bendalloy misting is known as a slider. Burning cadmium subtly pulls on time in a bubble around the allomancer, stretching it and making it pass more slowly. Burning bendalloy subtly pushes time in a bubble around the allomancer, compressing it and making it pass more quickly. Cadmium and bendalloy might be my favorite ones just because of how versatile they can be. They can be used for combat, science experiments, art, etc. Next, the internal enhancement metals, aluminum and its alloy duralumin. An aluminum misting is known as an aluminum gnat, and a duralumin misting is known as a duralumin gnat. Burning aluminum instantly metabolizes all of the allomancer's metal in their stomach without giving any of the magical effect, effectively wiping all of the allomancer's metal reserves. Burning duralumin instantly burns away any other metal being burned at the same time, releasing an enormous burst of power related to the secondary metal being burned. This means that only a mistborn can make use of both aluminum and duralumin properly. All that an aluminum gnat can do is swallow aluminum and other metals, burn the aluminum and make all the metals disappear. And duralumin gnats gains no usable powers from their allomancy as well, because they aren't able to burn any other metal in conjunction to benefit from the power boost. But hey, they're still technically allomancers, I guess? Finally, the external enhancement metals, chromium and its alloy nicrosil. A chromium misting is known as a leecher, and a nicrosil misting is known as a nicroburst. Burning chromium while touching another allomancer will cause an aluminum effect to the latter, wiping that allomancer's metal reserves without giving any of the magical effects. Burning nicrosil while touching another allomancer will cause a duralumin effect to the latter, instantly burning away the metal they are currently burning and giving them a huge burst of power. Chromium and nicrosil are sort of the support/buff debuff types. They can be very useful, but only if they're in a situation where there are other allomancers within touching distance. Otherwise, they don't really do anything. That's it. A short introduction to allomancy, in particular the 16 basic allomantic metals. By no way is this meant to be an exhaustive explainer, because there's so much more nuances to explore with allomancy, like flaring and savantism, creative applications of each metal's powers, and even the 3 additional secret god metals that don't fit in this classification system. With the classification system, hopefully it's pretty obvious by now how the table is organized into pushing and pulling, internal and external, and also the 4 quadrants. It's really neat, and it just makes sense. And the definition of each metal's powers makes it possible for cool and fun interactions between 2 or more of them, and that's only taking into account allomancy, not looking at possible combinations with the other 2 metallic arts. So yeah, there's plenty more stuff to talk about here.